What's up everyone, and welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, insane people, and anything else we find interesting. So be sure to subscribe for more Reddit content, and let's get into today's stories. I found out I'm not the biological mom of my child born from surrogacy. I can't believe my life has come to this. All I ever do is go out of my way to help others, but on the few occasions I need help, nobody ever comes through for me. I, 36 female, have been with my husband, 35, for a total of almost 10 years, married for 7. We had what I thought was my child by surrogate over 2 years ago, because after 4 years of trying to conceive with no success despite medical interventions, it turns out I am unable to carry a child to term. I had always wanted to be a mom. Devastated is an understatement regarding how I felt when I found out I have a medical condition that would make it nearly impossible to carry a baby to term. It was even more upsetting when I had to get a major surgery to remove uterine growths, with the hope to increase fertility, and complications during surgery warranted a partial hysterectomy, involving removal of my uterus only. I still had my ovaries, so we started looking into the cost of a surrogate. It is really expensive. My close friend since college, who had already had 2 kids of her own, offered to serve as the surrogate for us to cut down on costs. After 2 disappointing IVF sessions that did not result in pregnancy, she became pregnant on the 3rd try and carried a boy to term for us. I was so happy and busy after the birth, between being a mom and returning to work after a 4-week parental leave, so I didn't notice any warning signs. I should have noticed the red flags and warning signs early on, but did not, because I was so exhausted from working so much at my stressful job and 2 part-time jobs to cover most of the bills and anticipated medical and legal costs associated with this friend becoming our surrogate. I was the primary breadwinner. My friend and my husband started talking more, and I would sometimes come home from my weekend job to find her already hanging out at her house when my husband was there. I chalked it up as innocuous, and it's good for her to know my husband better since she was in the process of hopefully carrying our child for us. I was grateful to have someone helping us have a child. I also thought it was weird that our son has brown eyes when both of us have blue. Then I found out that while this is uncommon, it's possible sometimes due to many genes controlling eye color. Recently, it all came to a head when I took our son to a doctor's appointment, and they did metabolic panel and blood tests, which showed that he had a blood type that is not biologically possible to have with me as his mother. He's B positive, I'm A positive, husband is O positive. Immediately, I started worrying it was the fertility clinic's fault, and that they'd messed up and implanted a wrong embryo. I started lining up lawyer consultations to possibly sue the clinic, and looked into having a DNA parentage test done. The test results showed that I'm not the mother, but my husband still is the father. I was heartbroken and angrier than ever. I talked to lawyers about medical malpractice in the fertility clinic we used. Then my husband confessed that he'd slept with my friend, our surrogate, on a few different occasions during our struggle to have her get pregnant with our embryos. This means what I thought was our son conceived by in vitro fertilization and carried with the surrogate isn't my son at all, and was in fact conceived the old-fashioned way, which I can't ever do. Livid and absolutely broken at the same time doesn't even begin to describe how I feel. I have been breaking down into crying spells over and over again about this. He claims he didn't ever think pregnancy could result because he had always assumed that he was the reason for our earlier struggles to conceive, both before my hysterectomy and during the IVF insemination process with this friend. I felt an immediate triple betrayal from what was supposed to be my husband, my friend, and now knowing my child isn't even really mine. I had such white-hot rage and delirium I immediately left home and stayed at a hotel for almost a week before asking my parents to let me stay at home for a while. I admit I left our son with him. I am now filing for divorce because he cheated and betrayed me in the worst possible way. I have also cut off my friendship with my, quote, friend, the surrogate, and feel afraid to trust anyone else now. I have seen a divorce lawyer to see about giving up my legal rights to this kid, so I don't have to face such betrayal or owe child support. My husband and friend/surrogate admit they were wrong and keep apologizing, but also called me immature and heartless to just give up on my son like that. My parents also say I can't just give up on a kid that I went through so many legal and medical hoops to have. When I told them I refused to stay in a cheater marriage and I'd rather adopt someday with a better, more trustworthy partner, they also told me I was wrong and that maintaining my parental rights isn't much different than if I adopted outright. They said it isn't blood that makes a family. They are all about me divorcing my cheater husband, but keep telling me I'm making a mistake giving up my parental rights. Some of my other friends agree with what I'm doing. A few admitted they weren't big enough to swallow pride and care for an affair baby, or to see daily reminders of my friend/surrogate's betrayal every time I look at her son. I just want a clean break and a fresh start. I'm also looking at relocating several states away. Am I the asshole to give up my parental rights in the divorce because a kid I paid a lot of money to have born by surrogacy isn't biologically mine at all, but the surrogate's? Okay, yeah, OP, just do exactly what you want to do in this situation. No one else should be telling you what's right or wrong here. Okay, yeah, you did spend the last 2 years raising this baby as your own. And yeah, you did jump through a lot of hoops to be where you are today. But none of those hoops you jumped through mean anything when it was done under false pretenses, and literally all of this is built upon a lie. So for people to even try to use that as an argument for you to keep the baby is just ridiculous. That you've already spent a bunch of money on this, so you might as well just raise this affair baby that's not yours. How can you be so heartless to not want to raise someone else's baby? And for your parents to say that it isn't blood that makes a family is just a complete cop-out answer, ignoring the absolute mess of circumstances surrounding this whole thing. Anyone trying to oversimplify the situation for you and just boil it down into something that simple would probably feel very different about this if they were actually the ones in the situation. But it's easy to pass judgment when it's just someone else. But probably the most infuriating opinions that you're getting from other people is your husband and his affair partner calling you immature and heartless. I can't even wrap my head around that. So whether or not this baby actually means anything to you is completely your choice and yours alone. And no one else should be telling you what's right or wrong, whatever you decide. Especially not your husband or his affair partner. And it sounds like you're pretty set on washing your hands of the situation and just having a fresh start, and anyone worth your time will be supportive in your choice to do that. Anyway, what a mess. Comment down below if you have any thoughts of your own on this. Karen, don't stop. I'm a police officer and had to respond to a Karen incident a few months back, but today the case finally ended and I can discuss the matter in full. I usually find these stories from the person being accosted by the Karen and the cops being called. Today though, I was on the other end of the call. I was working as a police officer and got a call to the airport, where a vehicle struck a pedestrian near the terminal. It was just after sunset. When I arrived, several people were around a man being tended to by medical personnel, as he had been run over. The man was in severe pain and obvious distress, as it was noticeable that he had broken bones and would have to go to the hospital. Won't go into the details, but it was easy to see much of his injuries. He was wearing a blue and white jacket with reflective patches on the arms. This detail comes into play later on. The man was lying in a raised speed hump, a striped crosswalk with signage and lighting. This also comes into play later. I was pointed to a white SUV that had pulled into the pickup lanes along the curb. Many people told me that it was the vehicle that ran the man over. Another group was confronting a woman sitting in the white SUV. The woman, who had the typical attitude of a Karen, was tearful and acting as if she was upset. Still, during that time I watched her load her passenger, greeting her friend with a hug and a smile, after I approached the woman and took her ID as she didn't have a license. After getting the ID, I ran the check on Karen for wants and warrants, with the history check on her license. Note from later in the investigation, come to find out later on, with no surprise to me, she was suspended with no license from a list of charges that she had warrants for, including driving while intoxicated sometimes, a couple of hit-and-run charges, failure to provide insurance charges, and other driving violations. I discovered that drug possession charges came from driving drunk and one of the hit-and-runs. So just an upstanding citizen from the start for this Karen. Karen, who was playing tearful, asked why I needed her license. I told her I would be writing tickets at least and concluding the traffic accident. At this time, I was unsure how much of a Karen I was dealing with, and still thought it was mostly an accident. Well, the tears disappeared and Karen came out, pulling out her phone and recording me shouting that I was writing tickets and harassing an older woman for no reason, blah blah blah. When the crowd began to yell at her again, she turned away from me to them and argued. I approached the group and asked them to stop arguing. Many of them were upset with her and wanted to argue but stood back and recorded her instead, causing the Karen to try arguing with them. About this time, I was approached by a young man in his late teens who said he had something to show me. Pulling out his phone to a video, he was waiting for his family to come in and happened to catch the man being run over. The video started with him recording the doors from the upper level of the garage. You see the man in his blue and white jacket begin to cross the road in the marked crosswalk, with the indicator lights flashing, and was about halfway across before Karen flew around the road and up the curb. She ran the man over without brake lights or slowing down before pulling into her current spot. Nothing was blocking her view and the man. I had the young man send me the video to my work email and write out a statement of what he saw. After seeing this, I realized that it was more than just a simple accident and noted I still didn't know about Karen's history. I changed tactics and approached her, giving her a notice of her constitutional rights, known as a Miranda warning that everyone knows. They remain silent, have lawyers present, and don't have to make a statement speech that is read when we ask about a crime, and they are not free to leave. Well, Karen does as Karen does and never shuts up. As it had been on, my body cam was running, along with Karen still recording on her phone. I say, so what happened today with you running over the man? I didn't run him over. He wasn't even on the road. I didn't see him, so he must be faking it. No, he got run over, and all the witnesses are saying you were the one to hit him. No, I didn't see him. I came here to pick up my friend, she said as she pointed to her passenger. And I say, okay, what did you see if you didn't see him? I was looking for my friend on the curb to pick up and was texting her asking where she was. So the man who was hit wasn't standing in the crosswalk when you drove over it? No, he wasn't. I don't know where he came from. What is your name and badge number? Anyway, you are stopping me from leaving and I want your badge number and name. Sergeant OP and badge is 1234. Now what happened to the front of your car? She holds her phone up to my chest badge, repeats my name and badge number, and says, there must be real criminals to deal with, but no, you harass older women picking people up at the airport. You must be really proud of yourself. Are you going to answer my question? No, I don't have to, and I want a female officer. I don't trust you. You're trying to harass me as I am a woman and you are a man. As she didn't want to answer any further questions, I told her we would be leaving together shortly. I went to the crowd and asked if there were any other witnesses to the events. About a dozen hands went up, and all started talking at once. I then asked whether any others had video of the event. Now, while many hands went down, I still had a few. I was able to see the man being hit from many angles. With statements from the witnesses and the man being rushed to the hospital, I had the license returned, informing me of Karen's long list of problems and warrants. I had another few officers show up, including the only female on duty for my shift. We went back up to Karen, whose phone went back up. Why are there so many of you? You think you're going to intimidate me, huh? And I say, nope, you're under arrest. Pulling out my handcuffs, Karen started to scream and yell, and when we went to place her in the handcuffs, she pulled away and started fighting, pulling her arm away from us and screaming, no, over and over like a child. After the short struggle, she was placed in the patrol car's back seat to be taken to jail. Karen's passengers started arguing with officers that we needed not to arrest Karen, and that we didn't know what we were doing. Having herself involved allowed officers to get her name with no surprise. She had a warrant and got her pair of metal bracelets and had a free trip downtown. With her SUV towed, it was found she had a dash camera. It was seized and searched with a warrant, and Karen was served with a copy in the jail. The on-scene incident concluded, and the report was written about 5 months before the court hearing. The victim had to come testify as well as 6 of the witnesses. They all give the same story of how Karen just ran him over. The video footage showed the different views along with CCTV of the crosswalk, making it a well-rounded story. Through her court-appointed attorney, Karen tried to argue that she hadn't seen the man since he jumped in front of the car in dark clothes. Photos and videos proved that to be a lie. She then argued that he was not visible since it was dark and he wore dark clothing. Nope, yet again he was in blue and white with the reflective jacket, and the area was covered in lights. As she had admitted to texting while driving on body cam, she tried to argue that she wasn't distracted. The dash camera was probably the most damaging to her case. The video shows what is happening in front of the car and inside the vehicle with audio, speed, and location. The video from the dashcam shows Karen on her phone the entire time, not looking up as she was going 45 miles per hour in a 15 mile per hour. It shows the victim already in the crosswalk. She hits the crosswalk hump, and the man screams in pain. This finally got her attention, and she said, "Oh please, I didn't hit you that hard," as she pulls in to pick up her friend, calling her friend before saying, "Hey, hurry out here, I hit a guy who was acting all hurt, so we need to go." She continues the conversation before people start surrounding her vehicle and yelling at her. Needless to say, the judge wasn't pleased with Karen. Jail time of 24 months, with the 5 months already served to count, plus ordered to pay for damages and fines. Karen was also in civil court as she had no insurance for the man's hospital bill. This was finally concluded with this story allowing me to publish. Testimony in civil court allowed me to talk with the victim. He had one leg broken in a few different places, a concussion, and several bruises. He has been recovering and healing and returning to his normal self. Anyway guys, that's going to be all for today. Thank you for watching, I appreciate it. As always, if you enjoyed, be sure to like and subscribe for more. So I'm out of here, take care everyone, and I'll see you next time.